talking to people I've never met and maybe I never will meet. So you don't need to know the how. The how will show up. Number 7, you must tell yourself that you will succeed. You really have to be able to feel so strongly about what it is you're doing that you don't think it's stupid to talk to you about it. I mean, because what we believe inside is the way we manifest everything. David Schwartz wrote a really great book a number of years ago called The Magic of Thinking Big. And in this book, he says the size of your success is determined by the size of your belief. So in other words, if you can't imagine it, it's not going to happen. Now, Henry Ford, who they claim wasn't a very eloquent man because they said he wasn't a very intelligent man, said something that I think is absolutely profound. He said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Isn't that powerful? Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. So it's important that you find a way to speak to you, because the voice that we should be listening to, the voice that we should be hearing is the voice that's inside of us, the one that knows all of the things we've done well in life, all the things we've succeeded at. And it knows also the things we've done poorly at. It knows the times we messed up and screwed up and got it wrong, but it also knows the times we've done it well and right. And if we could put those on a scale and we could measure them, the truth of the matter is we have done some things wrong, but we've also done even more things well, more things right. I mean, after all, if the definition of failure is getting it wrong and screwing up, then shouldn't the definition of success be not screwing up, not getting it wrong? Well, even if we screwed up 10 times a day, think of the other 100 times a day we get it right. Well, mathematically, then we've done a lot more good. We've done a lot more things that have worked than we've ever done things that haven't worked. So you have to tell yourself that you, in fact, believe yourself. I'll give you an example of how this self-talk, self-affirmation, how it can be negative as well as positive. My life changed when I was 17 years old. Kathy had been in my life for a number of years, but she actually is the one who really caused the greatest single change that's ever happened in my life. And I can tell you exactly where I was at. I can tell you exactly what I was doing. I can describe it in perfect detail. And this happened 42 years ago. When I was 17 years old, Kathy then being 14, I was in my automobile driving her to work. At 14, she was a Girl Scout counselor. And I was driving her to a place called Peosta, Iowa, where they had the Campfire Girl Council. And she was going out there to do her job. And on the way out, we're driving in my car, and it's at night, and I'm talking. Surprise, I talk a lot. And all of a sudden, here's this 14-year-old girl who's shy and quiet, retiring, and just not a very demonstrative person in any way, shape, or form. Even today, she's still not. But all of a sudden, she just yells out at the top of her voice, and she's slapping the dashboard of the car saying, "Stop the car, I want out." And I'm going, wow, what's up with this girl? I don't get it. And I'm so startled and so scared, maybe the wrong word, but I'm so unsure of what's happening here. I don't even challenge it. I pull the car over to the side of the road, scrunch up on the gravel, getting off the highway, and with that, she jumps out of the car. She slams the passenger door. And I'm just looking like the deer in the headlights. I am not getting it. I have no idea what's going on in this girl's mind. And then she sticks her head back in the passenger side window. And she said, "I never want to see you again." And I'm going, wow, what's up? And thank God she continued. She said, "I love you. I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you, but I can't stand being around you when you put yourself down." What I was doing, and I didn't even know it because I wasn't even aware of it, I was putting me down. I would start sentences with like, "Well, what do you expect from a guy like me? Or what do you expect from a drunk? Or what do you expect from an alcoholic? Or what do you expect from a high school dropout? Or what do you expect from a kid born on the wrong side of the railroad tracks?" And I had 1,000 of them. And they were all true, but I was using every one of them as a crutch. I was using every one of them to explain why I couldn't possibly succeed because I had all these things going against me. Well, Kathy saw in me more value than I saw in me. And that caused me, for the very first time, to have to begin to be really careful of how I describe me to me. Because I was doing the opposite of what I want you to do. I was using negative affirmations. I was tearing me down every time I opened my mouth. Well, I want you to do the opposite. I want you to find positive affirmation. That I'm not talking about making something up or creating something out of whole cloth or lying to yourself. No, what are you good at? What have you really done? And you don't have to have won a Nobel Prize or have a Congressional Medal of Honor. What have you done? Find out what you have done and do something good with it. In 1997, Kathy and I entered into negotiations to buy the Chicago Bulls. We were going to buy it from Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf, the two titular owners. And if you remember back in that era, the Bulls had just won their three-peat. They were the world champions 3 years in a row. And Kathy and I are very big basketball fans, and so we entered into negotiations to buy the team. And we bid $200 million. Now, they countered at $300 million, and for $100 million, you have to go do due diligence. So we went to Chicago, and we got to spend a lot of time with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman and Phil Jackson and the boys, the team of that era. And one of the people we got to spend some serious time with was Dennis Rodman. Now, Dennis Rodman, if you don't remember him, some people do, some won't, he was then the bad boy of basketball. He had more tattoos and body piercings per square inch than probably anybody on the planet. Dennis was outrageous. He had different colored hair every night of the week. Got married once on TV wearing a white chiffon wedding dress. He has done some pretty outlandish stuff. Well, the truth of the matter is, all of that was marketing. That was Dennis's way of making sure people always remembered him. And so one day when I'm talking to Dennis, as we're in the negotiations, I say, Dennis, well, why do you do all these crazy things? And he goes, Bill, name me one other NBA rebounder. And I couldn't. Which meant that Dennis's marketing, his persona, his crazy, wild antics, all this stupid, ridiculous stuff that we thought stupid and ridiculous was brilliant. It was marketing that caused everybody to know who Dennis Rodman was. Well, isn't that what every athlete wishes they could get? Is notoriety and publicity and have a camera on him all the time? Well, Dennis had one particular technique that he used that always worked. Before every game, before every NBA game, they have a thing called the shoot-around. And the shoot-around is, before the game starts, all the players go out on the court for both teams, and they shoot around. They practice, they warm up, they're shooting baskets and they're laying on the floor, stretching and doing all kinds of warm-up stuff. Dennis would never participate. Dennis, instead of being out there on the court, would sit on the folding chair courtside, because that's what they actually sit on, and he would stretch his very long legs out in front of him and fold his arms over his chest. He'd have his shoes off. He never had his shoes on, and that was part of his marketing. Because that way, whenever Phil Jackson, the coach, would call on him to get in the game, he'd have to go, and he'd spend time tying up his shoes. Guess what? Every camera in the building would be watching Dennis tie his shoes. He got as much camera time as Michael Jordan did, and Michael Jordan's a pretty good basketball player. So anyhow, Dennis would sit there with his shoes off, he had the Sony Walkman plugged in his ears, and a towel over his head. Arms crossed, eyes closed, and if you've ever watched the Chicago Bulls game in that area, you'd seen that every single game. And it was so commonplace that but a lot of reporters had asked Dennis previously, well, Dennis, what are you listening to? And he would always tell them, because I'd read the accounts many, many times, that I'm listening to Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam was a pretty popular band back in those days. One day before the game, shoot-around's going on, and Dennis isn't participating, and I happen to be sitting next to him, and there he is, eyes closed, stretched out, shoes off, Walkman in, towel over his head. And I nudge him, and I go, Dennis, what are you listening to? Now, I already know the answer, because I've seen the accounts. He's supposed to tell me Pearl Jam. But he stops and he goes, Bill, I tell everybody it's Pearl Jam, but it's not Pearl Jam. I go, huh, cool, what is it? He goes, here, listen. He takes it off his head, and he puts it on mine. Well, actually, I'm down about here on him. Puts it on me, and I'm listening to Dennis Rodman talk to Dennis Rodman about how Dennis Rodman played the team they're going to face tonight the last time they played. Dennis Rodman has one tape of every single team in the league. So when a game gets done, he goes to the locker room like everybody else does, but before he sits down and does a shower, he talks into a recorder. And he tells himself how he played that night, how many fouls he committed, how many technical fouls, if he even had any, or how many cameramen he kicked, or how many baskets he made, or whatever it is he did. He tells him how he kicked their rump the last time he played them. And then the next time, before the game starts, he puts that tape on, listening to him tell him how he whipped them the last time. What a great motivator. Listening to the voice inside yourself. He didn't have to make anything up. He didn't have to fabricate it. He just took the good he could remember and put it in a place where he could find it. Well, that's what we have to do. We have to be able to talk to ourselves. And again, we're not talking about having imaginary friends or doing delusional, psychedelic kind of weird, drug-induced stuff. No, remember the good we've done and remind yourself perpetually. Number 8, you need to tell others of your promise. Now, in the previous one, it's number 7. We talked about the power of talking to yourself. Well, there's also power in talking to others. You know, we know it's okay to fail if nobody knows. So some of us have done that in the past. We have this new objective, this new thing we want to accomplish, and we don't want to tell anybody yet because, you know, we're not really sure we're going to be able to do it. So we start, and if it looks like we're going to be able to do it, then we tell people. And if it looks like we're not going to be able to do it, well, then we kind of like quietly quit so nobody knows. Well, success requires commitment. You've got to be able to get in the game. And the classic example of the story of commitment is probably one out of history. It's the Battle of Hastings. William the Conqueror in 1066 landed on the shores of England. Now, he landed with a squad of 600 boats invading England. And as the men got off the boats and landed on shore, he gave his first order: burn the boats. Those men became fully committed to victory as of that moment because there was no retreat. There was no way that they were going to get off that island absent being victorious. By doing one thing, he increased their level of commitment. So when you tell someone else of what it is you want to do before you even do it, like I've shared with you what it is I want to do before I've done it, that raises the level of commitment. It raises the level of effort and energy I'm now going to be willing to put in because I don't want to look bad in your eyes. It's the same thing that motivates me to continue to be a good husband and a good father because I can't let Connie be right. I can't let her be the person that was correct when she said I couldn't and wouldn't be these things that I want to be. So when you tell other people, it raises this level of commitment. Now, telling others does 3 things, and these same 3 things happen every single time. One of the 3. Here they are. When you tell somebody else what it is you want to do, they can help you. And there are good people in this world who really do want to help us. But let's not expect them to have ESP. Let's not expect them to be able to be mind readers. Let's not expect them to be able to guess what it is we want to go do that they, in fact, might be able to help us with. So if we just tell people what it is we want, what it is we're trying to accomplish, all of a sudden, if they can, perhaps they will help us. So the very first thing that can happen is a great thing. People can help us. The second thing that can happen, and it does happen on occasion, is people will laugh at us. They will tell us we're stupid. They will tell us that that's impossible. They'll tell us that we can't possibly do that. Good. Write their name on a 5x7 index card. Let them become a motivator for you. And the third thing that can happen is when we tell people what it is we want, we learn how to articulate it. We learn how to say it intelligently. We've all been in the business world where we'll run into somebody we haven't seen for a while and they're involved in a brand new business and they come up all gushing full of energy and we make that silly mistake of saying, hey, what's new? And they tell us, and it's like a babbling brook. They just keep running and running and running and running and we have no clue what it is they're even talking about because they can't describe it clearly. Well, telling other people teaches you have to learn how to say it quickly. You have to learn how to say it crisply. So when I said, my promise is to touch the lives of 10 million people in the next 5 years. When I first wrote it down, it was 2 and maybe going on 3 sentences long. It was a long-winded explanation. But as I started telling people, I began to hear myself talk and say, I don't need all those words in a sentence. I should shrink it down. I should make it more meaningful. I should just use the words that really do convey what it is I want. So by telling other people, any one of these three things can happen, and one of them will happen. Either they will help you, they will become a negative motivator for you, or if neither of those two happen, at least you will have learned how to communicate it more clearly. And in the business world, that's a crucial asset to be able to do. Number 9, you need to be able to envision the results. Now remember when I talked about the promise plan, and I said where, and you have to be able to see where you're going to be. Well, you have to be able to see where you're going to get to. You have to be able to imagine how it's going to be. And you say, oh, well, Bill, you're fantasizing, you're making stuff up, you're just daydreaming. Well, now let me tell you how it works in the real world. You know, every one of us, you and me and everybody else, we're already doing this. We're already imagining things that have not yet occurred, only we put a negative conclusion on them. It's called worry. Every one of us are good at worrying. We're worried about things that haven't happened. We worry about things that honestly never will happen. But when we start worrying about them, we're imagining a result that has not yet occurred that has a negative conclusion. And when we do it, when we worry, and some of us do it in our sleep, we're so good at it we can do it without even being awake. When we do it, we can hear and see and feel exactly what's going to happen. Only mostly it never does, because it's just imaginary. Well, in the law of the world, if there is this Newton's law, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if we know there is a thing called the law of polarity and the law of reciprocity, which means, for everything on this side, there has to be something on that side. So where there's a yin, there's a yang. Where there's an up, there's a down. Where there's a black, there's a white. Everything has to have a balance in the universe. Well, if there's a thing called worry, and worry is we can imagine a result that has not yet occurred, as long as it has a negative conclusion, why can't we do the opposite of worry? Why can't we imagine a result that has not yet occurred that has a positive conclusion? It's just as real as worry, only it has a different ending. And it would just balance out the thing on the other side. We have the right and the power to do that. And it's not daydreaming, it's not imagining, it's not, being silly. No, it's just saying, this is what I really expect out of my life. This is what I really want to have happen. And look, I can see how it works. I told you a story a minute ago about Dennis Rodman back in 1997. Well, I got to meet Michael Jordan also. And Michael Jordan is everything you think he is. He is the real deal, and he's the man you see. Well, I was writing my book about that time, and one of the chapters in my book is on this very topic, about being able to envision the results. So I was down in the locker room before a particular game, and I'm telling Michael about my book, and as I was expressing it to him, I said, yeah, and then there's a chapter on envisioning the result. And he stopped me and he goes, I get it. I said, Michael, come on, I haven't even told you yet. He goes, no, I get it. I said, Michael, come on, you're a smart guy, but I haven't even told you what this chapter is about. He goes, Bill, I get it. He said, I do this all the time. He said, I shoot free throws in my mind. He said, I've shot so many free throws in my mind, I can shoot free throw blindfolded. I said, Michael, come on, you're good, but, you're not that good. And he goes, no, come with me. Walked me up from the gym, over from the locker room over to the courtside. This is on Game 3 of the 1997 World Championship. They're playing the Seattle Supersonics. It's a great series. Walks me out on the court. Now, I'm the only guy out there wearing street shoes. But if you're going to spend $200 million, I guess they will let you wear street shoes. Walks me out to the free throw line. Has me stand with my back to the basket and the toes on the free throw line, so I'm staring at him. And there he stands in front of me. And he says, I can shoot this basket with my eyes closed. I said, Michael, this I got to see. So with that, he closes his eyes, he dribbles the ball, and he catches it. Now, I couldn't have even done that part. Me trying to dribble a ball and catch it with my eyes closed. I'm sure I wouldn't have caught it. Well, he not only catches the ball, he tucks in his elbow, he bends his knees, he shoots, and he follows through. All the while, his eyes are closed. Now, I'm standing right in front of him. The basket's behind me, and I'm watching his eyes, and I can see they have been closed during this entire process. And behind me, all I hear is swoosh. Michael Jordan has just shot a free throw with his eyes closed. And I'm amazed. I go, oh, Michael, that's like really, really cool. And we leave. We go off the court. The game goes on. Now, this is the third game of the 1997 championship. There's 2 minutes left to go. The Bulls are down by 4 points. 2 minutes left to go, down by 4 points. Michael gets fouled. Michael walks up to the free throw line, looks over to the sideline, winks at me. I know what he's about to do. This is one of those depends moments. I mean, this is back before I knew the NASA guys were wearing diapers. I'm having one of those moments saying, oh, crap. I know in front of God and everybody, he's about to shoot a free throw with his eyes closed. Now, there's 2 minutes left to go in the game. They're down 4 points. If it had been 2 minutes left to go and they're up 4 points, I would have thought this is a great idea. But I've got $200 million bet on this thing happening. I'm about to buy this team. I've got more money on this game than most of the NBA refs. I'm serious about this game. And all of a sudden, Michael's about to go do something that I'm going, oh my God, what's he going to do? With that, he closes his eyes, he dribbles the ball, he tucks his elbow, bends his knees, shoots, follows through, and swoosh. That shot has been shown more on ESPN than any other single shot in all of their basketball footage. And until now, very few people knew what Michael was really doing. Michael was showing me, and now you, that if you can see the conclusion before you start, it becomes more clear, it becomes more likely. Now, Tiger Woods is a pretty good golfer. Yeah, right, like air is good for you. Tiger Woods is a great golfer. Tiger Woods, in his own book, The Eye of the Tiger, tells us, and I believe it to be so because it just makes perfect sense to me, that Tiger Woods never takes a shot on the tee box, in the fairway, the rough, the green, the sand, anywhere, without first watching Tiger Woods walk up to the ball, address it, take the club back, swing through, make contact, watches the ball rise, watches the ball arc, watches the ball descend, watches the ball hit, watches the ball roll to a stop. Every single time, every single shot. So when you're watching Tiger Woods, and please do the next time you see him now, pay attention to this. Before he walks up to any shot, tee box or anything else, he will walk behind the ball and he'll spend a second or two. Because he's done this so much, so often, so many times, he can do it in a fast forward. And what he's doing, he says in his own words, he's watching him walk up to the ball and hit it. And he's watching the ball. Well, people like Michael Jordan, perhaps the greatest basketball player of all times, and Tiger Woods, soon to be acknowledged as the greatest golfer of all times, if they can do this, if they can play this silly little game in their head, then can't we play the same silly little game in our head? And isn't it really not a silly little game at all? These two people are making tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars seeing something in their head that hasn't yet happened. Why can't we emulate them instead of some people in Hollywood who are showing us the wrong things instead of the right things? So this step, see the conclusion. See it before it happens. Step number 10, take action. Now, remember, the other 9 were just as simple, just as elementary, and just as powerful, and just as important. Take action. You say, well, duh, that's obvious. Yes, it is. How come then we don't do it? You know, we can sit around and making the greatest plans in the whole world, and we can have, all these people who want to help us, and we can have all these other components. But if we don't get off the couch, if we don't go do something, it's not going to happen. Recently there was this movie in the book called The Secret, and it's a great work, and Rhonda Byrne has done a terrific